Hello and welcome everybody to the Chess24 headquarters. My name is Jan Gustafsson and I'm very pleased to introduce Mr. Artur Yusupov. I'm sure most of you have heard of Artur before. For those who haven't, he's, in my opinion, one of the, not only the most known, but also the best chess trainers in the world. I personally grew up reading his books. Of course, he's also a well-established grandmaster. I don't want to brag too much about your accomplishments. I believe you were a World Championship semi-finalist, and I hold a personal grudge because the only German championship in which I played well in 2005 or something, you won ahead of me. So you have a very long list of accomplishments, and we're very happy to have you here. So what are we going to be doing in this series?
Thank you. We will study the world number one, current world number one player, Magnus Carlsen. And of course, he is such a complete player, so we cannot learn everything in a short training session. But we try to concentrate on his incredible positional feelings and understanding of chess. I had an opportunity for 1 year to speak with his former coach and the fantastic player Garry Kasparov about Magnus Carlsen, and Garry Kasparov mentioned his incredible positional understanding. And I think we will try to look how Magnus is playing, how he puts his pieces. We have several lectures and also some test positions which is possible to solve and to try to develop the feeling and understanding of positional play of Magnus Carlsen.
All right. Well, personally, I hope I will learn something, and also, of course, that you guys, the viewers, will learn something. Because to me, Carlsen has always been a bit of a mystery. I understand he's incredibly strong, you only have to look at his results, but I can't really figure out how he does it. He's not an opening specialist like Kasparov or Kramnik, for example. His preparation doesn't seem too deep, but somehow he always manages to get positions and then outplay people. So, yeah, I hope you can enlighten us.
I hope we will see something and we can understand some of his weapons. Of course, we wouldn't be able to understand all of his weapons, but let us see the game he played against Vasily Ivanchuk.
All right, let's get started. So Magnus is white against Ivanchuk.
Yes, so they played Grunfeld defense. It is, of course, always very difficult to prepare against Ivanchuk because he plays a lot of openings. And I am sure that Magnus Carlsen tried to do his best in this game, choosing the very principled line, Alekhine variation, a classical weapon against Grunfeld defense.
That's called Alekhine variation? I didn't know that.
I call it, but I think Alekhine was one of the first players who tried this, putting the knight on e2. That was
Bishop c4, knight e2,
knight e2 yes,
setup. I believe also Spassky played some famous games.
Exactly, big games against Robert Fischer, and but this is a classical, and we will come now to maybe the main position. The main crossroads of these variations, and yeah, I think that the games Spassky Fischer you mentioned, black played Queen c7, the old main move, also extremely popular move is Bishop g4 in this position. They played Karpov and Kasparov in Sevilla, for example, and of course also many other very interesting, exciting games. So this is maybe the main roads, but also c takes d4 in this position was played very often, and move Bishop d7. I think Peter Svidler liked to play this and played on many occasions.
I used to play this line with white, and I liked analyzing these sharp lines with Bishop g4, which you just showed. At some point I gave up because it seemed to me like black has too many interesting setups. All these moves you mentioned, b6, now this trendy knight a5, and it was kind of hard to cover everything with white, and it also seemed like black gets interesting play in most of the lines. So it is clearly a trendy opening. Also, Topalov beat, I believe, Anand in their recent World Championship match in this line. And Ivanchuk played the move Knight A5, which is one of the topical moves.
Yes, exactly. I think that was played by in this mentioned game Topalov Anand. Knight A5 became very popular. I am slightly skeptical to this move, but of course it has also its merits. The drawbacks is obvious that knight goes away from the center. White answer is forced. Bishop D3, B6, Rook C1 was played. Also, the continuation Queen D2, E5 was proved in some modern games.
Yeah, that's the aforementioned Topalov Anand game. Where Rook C1 is also clearly a very natural continuation, and I believe the main line. Well, you can always argue what was the main line, but it's a normal move. Here, E5 I think is also a fashionable move, but Ivanchuk plays.
In this particular game, he took on D4. Maybe it is small concession that is possible, of course, to argue after this game, because White got an open C line and already his rook is in excellent position. In fact, please just pay attention how marvelously Carlsen put his pieces. I think I saw many games of Carlsen, but I never saw that he had some pieces on the bad positions. Always very nice positioned and doing something. He really likes that his pieces are working very active. Black setup, probably we need to comment on it. He played E6 and bishop B7, clearly designed against the move D4, D5, and it has also drawbacks, and this drawbacks is that the move E7, E6 weakens black squares a little bit, and we will see in Carlsen has his own opinion about this move. In this moment, he made a very interesting but also very typical move. It is still a theoretical continuation. He played here H4. Very interesting idea. White starts to attack on the king side.
So in general, he had all his pieces out, and now he had to make up his mind where to hit. And since you mentioned that Black maybe weakened himself a bit with E6, he decided to attack on the king side?
Yes, this is a very typical resource. We will see also in the game how much weaker black position would be, even if White simply plays H5 and H take G6. Even in this case, black's pawn structure would be already weakened.
I have an obvious question. Why can't black take the pawn on H4?
Yes, this is of course a principled variation, and here we have a forced line. Black queen would be immediate in danger after bishop G5. For example, queen G4. We can chase the queen further. Yeah, queen H5, and here we see that queen is in a big danger. This small counterplay wouldn't work after king takes F2, queen H2, rook H1. The queen is trapped. Also, in some other variations, of course, queen is trapped. So this is probably very well known for both players, and at least very easy line also for Ivanchuk to calculate.
So in general, Carlsen is using some, well, for his standards, small tactic to push home his strategic idea. He knows probably that you can't take the pawn, and he uses this small detail to suit his plans, right?
Yes, and of course he already opens his card that he wants to play on the king side.
So what did Ivanchuk do?
Now probably a critical moment in the game, which actually needs further investigation. Ivanchuk played queen e7. Also Carlsen, in his marvelous comments to the game, he criticized this move. He said a little bit abstract idea, and I think that Black lost the game because he probably played a little bit too passive. And maybe that was a moment where he already should take some action and should start more concrete counterplay. My suggestion would be here to position the queen not on e7 but on d7 to aim to some counterplay concerning the pawn d4, maybe to try to hit the pawn d4, knight c6 to prepare. Maybe also another idea would be to play rook a to c8 and to exchange the rooks. Queen e7 is slightly abstract move, but we will see actually this very interesting game, very strange game in a way that Ivanchuk did not make any clear mistakes in this game.
Yeah, also Queen e7. Of course, I believe you. It doesn't look like a natural move though. He's preparing rook to c8, he's getting the queen out of the way, and for now White's attack doesn't look all that scary. So let's see how Carlsen got it going.
Yes, the next move is a kind of obvious. He plays h5, and Black played rook f to c8, which obviously was an idea of Ivanchuk. That's why he wanted to connect the rooks.
Taking that pawn on h5 is just never an option because it would weaken
the king side very strongly. Now, this is probably a question for our viewers. You can probably push some button and to stop the video and to think about the position and try to compare your decision with the decision of Magnus Carlsen. And
so this is a critical moment where Carlsen has to think about how to develop his attack.
Basically, he has to maybe even to show his cards now, and that's what he is doing with an excellent move.
So magically, after you took your 5 minutes, I'm sure you thought about it long and hard. Here we are. What happened?
E5 happened. Yes, if I can get the move.
Technical problems. Let's see what's going on.
No, that's okay. E5. Yes, that's actually really showing all his cards. The game would be played on the black squares. White concedes the square d5, but black in the moment cannot use it so nicely. And his main idea is to start playing on the black squares. Operation maybe bishop g5 or bishop h6 will come to.
Well, it's a very tricky decision. In my mind, often in the Grunfeld, when you had to play this move e5, like you said, weakening the d5 square, it's because something went wrong, because there was too much pressure on the pawn on d4, for example. So to do it voluntarily, he must already have thought very deeply that his kingside attack and the gains by this e5 outweigh the losses, right?
Yeah. He has a confidence. Yeah, that's the move shows a lot of confidence, and obviously also he knows what he is doing. Fantastically concentrated game. We will see black now. I think Ivanchuk he took on c1. Already Magnus Carlsen in his comments he also criticized the whole operation of black. He said maybe it was a time for black to bring the knight in play. It is maybe more stylistical solution. We see that Magnus Carlsen prefers just to play with all his pieces and not only with part of his army. That's why this knight on e5 for him would be an irritating factor. He would try to bring the knight as soon as possible in action.
Then again, I learned that if your opponent is trying to attack you, it's often a good idea to exchange pieces. I mean, here he's trying to get rid of the rooks, right? So what's the problem with this? Does he weaken his back rank with it too much?
That could be one of the problems. Okay. Actually, in this particular position, white rooks were not really dangerous in attack. Yeah? They were not really participating in attacking operation. So I think two possible factors. One, that he weakens his back rank, and second problem that he probably wasted some time for this operation and not generating a real counterplay.
So after white now, I assume, is going to take on c8, and then he loses some time because the bishop is not on its best square, for example. It should be on b7.
Yes, also poorly placed. And now, again, a very small question. Maybe take your time, think about how would you continue the attack.
How much time do we give the viewers? 5 minutes?
Maybe
2 minutes?
Maybe 5 minutes,
Okay.
like in the game. Yeah, you seldom have to spend more time. Yeah? You have to spend more time.
I have an idea. Let's see.
Yes, okay. Two possibilities coming to consideration, bishop g5 or bishop h6. If bishop h6 trying to exchange this dark squared bishop, and then maybe in some good moment even to play h5, h6 and to create some checkmating threats. But here I see some concrete problems. After exchange and queen h4, black has a very decent counter chances. For example, queen c1, bishop b7. Some pieces already are in an active position. It's counterplay.
All of a sudden it feels like white would like to have his h-pawn back home on h3 or something, because now black can also create some mating threats one day. Yeah, this doesn't look so good. So Carlsen did better.
He did better. He just played here bishop g5. The aim is the same. Yeah? He wants to exchange the dark squared bishop, but doing it via f6, bringing the bishop to f6.
Also stopping the queen going to h4.
Stopping some counterplay, and at the same time opening the way for white queen to enter the king side. So now the pieces start moving in the right direction to attack. Black played here queen c7. This could be another small mistake of Ivanchuk. I looked at the position very carefully, and I came to a conclusion maybe a more active move, instead queen a3, would be much more to the point, at least to prevent white from entering king side with the queen, so to generate some distraction on another side.
Queen c7 looks completely normal, of course, going to the only open file, but it does give white too free a hand on the king side. That's the
yes. He sees the open file, but in this position that doesn't mean anything, because he doesn't have any squares to enter over this file. Very interesting that Carlsen also analyzes some other moves, and he gives the following variation. He gives the line f6, trying to exchange some pieces, but after forced moves, Carlsen sees some small tactic, double attack on g6 and on c8.
That's the kind of tactic I understand.
So we come back to the move in the game, queen c7, bishop f6, knight c6, and now very, very instructive moment in the game. White bring his queen into attack with queen g5. That like finishing the maneuver bishop g5, bishop f6, and finishing it with a nice move queen g5. Now it looks already very, very dangerous for black. What to do? For example, if some logical move like knight b4, then white can simply take on g7, king takes g7, queen f6 check, king f8, otherwise h6 would be very strong. And now small combination which mentioned by Carlsen, probably he was calculating it during the game. Bishop takes g6, pawn takes g6, h6, all of a sudden h-pawn is incredibly strong.
Because if king g8, queen g7 checkmate would be a small problem. And as the pawn queens, I see. So in general, his plan was to exchange the dark squared bishops, and thus highlighting the weakened position of the black king with these moves e6 and g6. Of course, they were useful moves, but he is trying to expose the problems with it, right? After bishop to f6, one move b4, couldn't black have tried to keep this bishop and go to f8 to kind of defend the dark squares? Or
Yeah, that is interesting possibility. We can continue like in the game Queen G5. Let's just see what happens if Black would play similarly, let's say Knight C6, and then
you're just gonna
White,
checkmate me.
exactly, White can take on G6, F takes G, and sacrifice the bishop. At the end, you would probably survive the attack, but you will lose some material here because of Queen A8 check hitting all pieces here.
I'm always disappointed when that happens.